Kol Nidre is a night of paradoxes. We began together by releasing vows to God that we couldn't keep, those promises that we made in fear or guilt or loneliness. And yet, if tonight is about letting go of our oaths, what promises remain? That question came up for me a few weeks ago when Alana Aryan visited Bethel for that evening of songs and stories. She taught us the refrain to a really beautiful song. We're traveling the same path together. We're walking each other back home. Alana was inspired by a Talmudic phrase, Kol Yisrael arevim ze bazeh. All Israel are connected to one another. We're arevim. We're woven together. We're mixed up with one another. We're interconnected. And we're responsible for one another, both physically and spiritually. I felt the truth of that teaching as we sang here in our sanctuary with Alana. It was a lot like this evening in some ways. The power of the music wasn't something that we were just given. It was something that we created. People leaned into the melody. They were swaying, closing their eyes, giving themselves to the experience. And her song wrapped us in a talit of comfort. What made the moment even more powerful for me is that Alana told us that she had finished composing that song 2 years ago, right before October 7th. She'd assumed the song was going to be shelved by the temple who'd commissioned it, but they told her, no, this song stays. Because in a time of grief and fear, they needed to affirm that that ancient truth still held, that we're here for one another. So how do we live with arevut, with that sense of mutual responsibility? The ancient rabbis offer us an answer in another Yom Kippur paradox. They teach that the two happiest days of the Jewish calendar were the 15th day of Av and Yom Kippur. Here's what they say. On those days, the daughters of Jerusalem would go out in white clothes, which each borrowed from one another, so that no one would be embarrassed if they lacked their own. And they went and they danced in the vineyards, singing to the young men. Why were they dancing on Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement? Well, the rabbis explain, God lets us atone today for the shortcomings that we've made if we first make peace with one another. Yom Kippur is a delight because it's a time of forgiveness. And once we've done that essential work, we can truly celebrate, because dance is one way of saying we're whole again. Let's rejoice. The daughters of Jerusalem demonstrate what arevut can look like. So how do we join in? That ancient dance has 3 steps. First, reach out with humility. I imagine the daughters of Jerusalem speaking to their companions as they began their preparations. They took the time to do teshuvah, to tend to the relationships that needed repair. It's much easier to dance, to draw closer to one another, once we've made sure that all is well between us. Second, tend to each other's needs. The daughters of Jerusalem shared their garments so that everyone could participate. Arevut calls us to notice what others need and then to offer it to them in ways that honor their dignity. Third, embrace joy. As we make peace with those around us, we celebrate. Like the Talmud teaches, Yom Kippur can become a delight. As we make peace in our communities, God will be merciful to us in turn, and that is cause for joy. This process is not restricted to women in a vineyard 2,000 years ago. It's for all of us. And I want to be clear here, caring for one another cannot be seen exclusively as a role for women or for any particular gender identification. Mutual care is everyone's obligation and privilege. Each of us is invited to join in the dance. Each of us can connect with one another when we step forward into that relationship of responsibility. That ancient tradition flows straight into our own day. A few weeks ago, I watched a CNN interview with Robert Putnam. Anyone see that? He's the author of Bowling Alone and American Grace. They were asking him how we could strengthen our communities in a time where we're seeing factions and divisions and wedges breaking us apart. Here's what he said. Go local. Work with your neighbors. Go moral. I have to worry about my neighbors as much as I worry about myself. That's the core philosophy of just about every world moral system. In other words, Kol Yisrael arevim zeh bazeh. We're responsible for one another. And I'm delighted, incidentally, Robert Putnam is going to be teaching us more about this idea when he visits Bethel in January. I have to say, I felt that sense of connection very personally this past year. I found it in the warmth of my 50th birthday party that the congregation threw for me back over the summer. There are a few rabbis who are so blessed by their community, and I'm very grateful for those connections that we share together here at Bethel. At Rosh Hashanah, I quoted from Pirkei Avot, "If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? But if I'm only for myself, what am I?" Then we focus on our obligation to care for the world beyond our walls. Now, through Yom Kippur, we'll focus on how we can act with arevut for one another and for Am Yisrael, for the people of Israel. In Yom Kippur, we focus more than ever on our relationships. Our prayers are all in the plural. We confess together. We seek forgiveness together. And God willing, we find renewal together. Arevut means we depend on one another's strength, especially when the world feels dark. That's how we find light. And that's how we resolve that paradox of Kol Nidre. Tonight, we're absolved of the vows we made to God when we were in a state that made it impossible for us to offer a promise in a way that we could ever fulfill. And we're permitted to release those vows this evening so that we can focus on what we were always meant to uphold. That sense of arevut, our sacred responsibility to one another. That is the promise that remains for us when we let go of all other commitments before God. Through this holy day, let's emulate the daughters of Jerusalem. It's still not too late to do teshuvah. Find someone who you've hurt or from whom you've grown distant. Maybe it's a family member you've been avoiding or an old friend with whom you had a falling out. Approach them and with simple honesty ask, how can I repair what's broken between us? Listen to the answer. Respond with your whole heart. And if someone reaches out to you, receive it as a blessing, as a gift of the Spirit in this holy season. That dance begins together this evening. And it'll guide us step by step until tomorrow night we arrive at Ne'ilah. That's when we'll experience the true joy that the rabbis envisioned for this day. Ne'ilah is when we will sing in the vineyard together. That's when we'll celebrate becoming reconciled and whole. That's the covenant that we're affirming tonight. Whatever burdens you're carrying into this holy day, you are not alone. We're held by one another. We are wrapped in the talit of our sacred relationship. As we dance through this day of teshuvah, of return to our Creator, to our community, and to ourselves, let's affirm Alana Arian's loving truth. We are traveling the same path together. We are walking each other back home. Gomal Chatimat Tova.